Madison, Alex whispered, his voice gentle. Are you all right? I nodded, but deep down I knew I wasn't. When I returned home that evening, my husband was already asleep, and my son was also sound asleep. I entered the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The woman in the mirror had slightly messy hair, lips still red from passionate kisses, and an empty look in her eyes that I couldn't recognize. Madison, what have you done? I whispered, my voice trembling. I didn't know the answer. But I knew that from that moment on, there was no turning back. Hello everyone, my name is Madison Parker, a literature teacher at a small high school in the suburbs of Los Angeles. From the outside, my life looks like a perfect picture, a devoted husband, an adorable 6-year-old son, and a lovely house with a thriving rose garden. But pictures, no matter how beautiful, can hide cracks that only those inside can see. I used to love this life, or at least I thought I did. But over time, those intense feelings gradually faded, replaced by a series of regular tasks. I woke up early, prepared breakfast, took my son to school, stood at the podium lecturing about Shakespeare or Hemingway, and returned home in the evening to cook, clean, and then fall asleep next to a husband I wasn't sure I still knew well. It wasn't unhappiness, but emptiness, a smoldering feeling like the distant murmur of the ocean, not loud enough to startle you, but persistent enough that you couldn't ignore it. When I stood in front of the mirror in the morning, looking into my own eyes, I asked myself, is this the life I want? Those eyes didn't seem to reflect an answer. I saw a woman who was perhaps still attractive, long, shiny brown hair, gentle blue eyes, and skin that still retained its youthfulness, but inside was a Madison who was lost, confused between the roles that society and family imposed on her. My life changed, not because of a fateful moment, but from a chance meeting. That day, I received an email from Alex Turner, a parent of a student in my class. He suggested a meeting to discuss how Lucy, his daughter, needed extra support in literature. Ms. Parker, I hope I'm not bothering you. I would like to discuss further how to help Lucy develop her writing skills. Could you spare some time to meet me at the Blue Bottle Cafe near the school? I agreed, thinking it was just a normal work meeting. But unexpectedly, that meeting opened a path that I never imagined I would take. Blue Bottle Coffee was located in Westwood, where office workers often gathered to relax between busy days. When I walked in, Alex was already sitting there, wearing a crisp white shirt, looking calm but still charming. Ms. Parker, he stood up, offering his hand in greeting with a warm smile. We sat in a secluded corner, where the soft light from the large windows enveloped everything. The conversation initially revolved around Lucy, about her difficulties in expressing ideas clearly, about ways to help her become more confident. But soon after, Alex shifted the topic to me. I've always admired teachers like you, he said, his voice deep. Your job must not be easy at all. I laughed, trying to keep myself composed. Actually, I find it quite rewarding to help students discover the world through literature. That's wonderful, Alex replied, his eyes lighting up. I wish Lucy could inherit some of that passion. The conversation lasted longer than I expected. Alex wasn't just a father concerned about his child, he was a knowledgeable man, with an irresistible charm. He talked about his early years in business, about the restaurant chain he had built from scratch, and also his favorite books. I'm guessing you like Jane Austen, he said, his eyes probing. You guessed right, I replied, feeling a little flustered by the special attention he was paying me. When I walked out of the cafe, I felt that something inside me had changed. Alex wasn't just a parent, but he had become a presence that I couldn't stop thinking about. That evening, sitting next to my husband watching TV, I felt an invisible but undeniable distance. He was still the man I once loved, but his gaze now only glanced over me, as if I were a familiar part of this house, nothing more. I couldn't help but think about Alex, about the way he listened, the way he made me feel like I was the center of attention. It wasn't love, at least I didn't think so. But it was something I had been missing, a connection, an understanding that I hadn't had for a long time. I told myself that everything would stop here. Alex was just a fleeting breeze, someone who reminded me that I still had feelings, that I was still a woman. But in my heart, I knew that things weren't that simple. Alex Turner had entered my life, gently like a breeze, but also strong enough to stir everything I thought I held certain. I wondered, was this a reminder, or the beginning of a story I wasn't ready to face? That day, Los Angeles was bathed in sunshine. The dry air and gentle warmth made me feel both comfortable and slightly tired after teaching. But the email from Alex brought a breath of fresh air. "A quick meeting at La Colombe Cafe, if you have time," he wrote. I didn't hesitate to accept. La Colombe was located in Westwood, an elegant yet cozy spot with abundant natural light. When I walked in, the aroma of roasted coffee enveloped me like a gentle hug amidst the intense heat outside. I chose a table near the window, where the sunlight streamed through the cool green foliage, creating a scene that was both tranquil and romantic. I arrived early, but Alex was already there. He was sitting in the corner of the cafe, holding a book, not a phone or laptop like everyone else. That image couldn't help but make me smile. When he looked up, our eyes met, and for a moment, I felt like time stood still. The conversation began with issues surrounding Lucy, her grades, homework, how she could improve her writing skills. But after a few questions, Alex changed the subject. "Your job must not be easy," he said, his voice deep and sincere. I laughed, but felt a slight unease inside. "It's not too difficult. It's just that sometimes I wonder if what I do really makes a difference." "It definitely does," he replied immediately, without a moment's hesitation. "Lucy admires you very much. She tells me about how you encourage students to see literature not just as books, but as a way to understand the world and themselves." Alex's words, along with his attentive gaze, made me flustered. How long had it been since I had been listened to in this way, with genuine, unhurried interest? As the conversation continued, he told me about his journey building his restaurant chain, the difficulties and sacrifices he had gone through. "I used to think I would never have time for family," he said, his eyes showing a hint of regret. "But now I realize, the most important thing isn't success, but connection with the people who really matter." His words echoed distantly within me, awakening feelings that I had tried to bury. "I didn't know a teacher could be so young and full of enthusiasm," Alex said, a slight smile flitting across his face. Those words, though simple, were like a cool stream of water soothing the dryness within me. I smiled back, but my heart beat faster than usual. Underscore 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 underscore. Such meetings didn't stop at La Colombe. A few weeks later, Alex sent a message, inviting me to an art exhibition at the Getty Center. "I think you'll like it. This exhibition is about paintings inspired by classic literary works," he wrote. I hesitated, but finally agreed. When I entered the museum with Alex, I couldn't help but notice the ease he brought. He didn't try to impress me, but his every word, every gesture made me feel appreciated. "Madison, do you know you have a very unique way of looking at the world?" Alex said, as we stopped in front of a painting inspired by Jane Eyre. "Really?" "I think I'm just a normal person," I replied, but my heart was filled with warmth. "No, you're not normal at all," he said, looking directly at me. I don't know from what moment, but Alex had become a part of my thoughts. Our conversations made me feel more alive. His attention was like an antidote to the emptiness in my married life. I began to wonder, was this just a friendship, or something more? But even as guilt crept in, I couldn't stop myself from waiting for his messages, looking forward to our meetings. I knew I was crossing a dangerous line, but I couldn't stop. And deep down, I wondered, was this the liberation I had been searching for, or just another trap? In the days following the meeting at La Colombe, my life was shaken by a strange feeling, both thrilling and dangerous. Alex was no longer just a parent, he had become someone I couldn't stop thinking about. It all started with work emails. Initially, Alex sent me a few questions about how Lucy could improve her writing. But gradually, those emails became more personal. I'm very impressed with your teaching. Perhaps I should join one of your classes, if I'm allowed, he wrote, adding a small smiley face at the end of the email. I laughed when I read that line, feeling strangely lighthearted. It was a feeling I hadn't had in a long time, subtle and suggestive attention, making me feel special. One afternoon, I received a text message from Alex. I'm near the school, at the Blue Bottle Cafe. If you're free, we could meet to discuss further how Lucy can develop her writing skills? I hesitated. This seemed like just a work meeting, but my heart skipped a beat. I agreed, trying to convince myself that there was nothing unusual about it. Blue Bottle Coffee was located in a busy area of Santa Monica, with a minimalist space and abundant natural light. I arrived a few minutes late, and Alex was already there, a black coffee in front of him. Madison, it's nice of you to agree to meet, he said, standing up to greet me, his eyes sparkling strangely. We started talking about Lucy, the work she needed to read, how to improve her essays. But soon after, the conversation shifted to more personal topics. Literature seems to be not just your job, but a part of your life, Alex commented. I'm guessing you must have a little corner in your house dedicated to your favorite books. I laughed, feeling a little embarrassed. You guessed right. I like to read in my study, where there's natural light and it's away from the noise. Alex nodded, his eyes seeming to look right through me. That sounds wonderful. You're someone who knows how to enjoy the beautiful things. His words were simple, but they touched a deep part within me, a part that had been forgotten amidst everyday worries. After that meeting, Alex frequently sent messages or emails. The content initially revolved around Lucy, but then he started asking about more personal things. Have you ever been to the Getty Center? I think you'd like it there, lots of exhibitions about classic literature. Another time, when I was packing up after school, Alex suddenly appeared at the classroom door. I was passing by, he said, a gentle smile on his lips. Would you mind if I bought you a cup of coffee? I refused, making an excuse that I had urgent business, but my heart was pounding when I looked into his inviting eyes. Every time I returned home after meeting or communicating with Alex, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope. My reason reminded me that I had a family, that things were going beyond the limit. But my emotions whispered that Alex brought me what I had been missing for a long time: attention, understanding, and a feeling of being valued. One evening, while I was reading a message from Alex in the bedroom, my husband suddenly walked in. Who's texting so late? He asked, his eyes glancing at the phone in my hand. I startled, quickly putting the phone away. Just a colleague asking about lesson plans, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. He nodded, turning back to the TV screen, but I felt a hint of suspicion in his eyes. The first time Alex touched my hand, it was just a light touch when he helped me carry a stack of documents. But that feeling sent shivers down my spine. Madison, he said, his voice deep and resolute, I don't think I can hide it anymore. I'm really drawn to you. I froze. My reason screamed that I had to stop, but Alex's eyes prevented me from uttering a refusal. When his lips touched mine, everything around me seemed to vanish. It was a moment that I both longed for and feared, a sweet but sinful liberation. I knew that I had crossed a dangerous line, and there was no turning back. But even in the deep feeling of guilt, I couldn't stop myself from waiting for the next meeting. That day, the Los Angeles sun was bright but not harsh. I had just finished my last class, my mind vaguely filled with repetitive thoughts. It was a normal day, or at least I thought so, until I received a text message from Alex. Madison, I need to see you. Not about Lucy, but about us. Blue Bottle Coffee at 5 o'clock, if you can. I stared at the phone screen, my finger hovering over the reply button. My whole body was tense, but at the same time, it felt like a smoldering fire was burning inside. After a few seconds of struggling, I typed. Okay. I'll be there. Blue Bottle Coffee was tucked away on a quiet street near Santa Monica. The light inside the cafe was soft, creating a sense of privacy. I walked in, feeling a mixture of suffocation and nervousness. Alex was already sitting in a corner, his eyes lighting up when he saw me. "Madison," he said, standing up and pulling out a chair for me. We started with casual conversation, but we both knew that wasn't the reason we were there. After the first cup of coffee was cleared, Alex leaned towards me, his gaze direct, without any concealment. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice low but firm. "Madison, I know this is wrong, but my feelings for you are real." My heart pounded, my whole body seemed to freeze in that moment. I wanted to stand up, to leave, but his eyes held me back. "Alex, we shouldn't," I said, but my voice was so weak that I knew he wouldn't believe me. "I know," he replied. "But sometimes, what the heart wants isn't always the right thing." After that, everything seemed to happen in a dream. Alex gently reached out and touched my hand, his fingers brushing across mine like an irresistible invitation. I didn't know what I was thinking, but when he stood up and took my hand, I stood up too, like a moth drawn to a flame. "Come with me," he said, and I couldn't stop myself from following. We left the cafe, walking through the bustling streets of Santa Monica. He took me to a small hotel, where the warm yellow lights in the hallway blurred any feelings of guilt. The room was filled with the gentle scent of jasmine, but I no longer paid attention to anything other than him. When Alex pulled me close, I didn't resist. His lips touched mine, no longer a gentle touch, but a passionate, powerful one like a fire burning. We didn't say a word, just let our emotions lead the way. Each touch, each embrace, was a confirmation that I had crossed the line that I had sworn I would never cross. When everything was over, I lay in bed, my eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. Alex lay beside me, his hand holding mine as if to reassure me. But the silence after the storm didn't bring me relief, but a suffocating feeling of guilt. "Madison," Alex whispered, his voice gentle. "Are you all right?" I nodded, but deep down I knew I wasn't. When I returned home that evening, my husband was asleep, my son was also sound asleep. I entered the bathroom and looked in the mirror. The woman in the mirror had slightly messy hair, lips still red from passionate kisses, and an empty look in her eyes that I couldn't recognize. "Madison, what have you done?" I whispered, my voice trembling. I didn't know the answer. But I knew that from that moment on, there was no turning back. I knew that things couldn't last forever, but I wasn't prepared for the day everything fell apart. That day, it was drizzling in Los Angeles, raindrops tapping on the window as I drove away from the hotel where Alex and I had just had a brief encounter. My heart was in turmoil, but also filled with a sweet, secretive feeling. When I got home, the living room lights were on. I walked in and saw my husband sitting on the sofa, holding my phone. A cold sensation ran down my spine. "Madison," he said, his voice low but not loud. He looked up at me, his eyes no longer with their usual gentleness, but instead with a coldness I had never seen. "I found this," he held up the phone, the screen displaying a text message from Alex that I hadn't had time to delete. "Tonight was wonderful. I can't stop thinking about you." I stood there, frozen. All excuses vanished. "What do you want to hear?" I asked, my voice so small it was almost a whisper. "I want to know the truth," my husband replied, his voice like a sharp knife, cutting deep into my heart. I knew I couldn't lie, but the truth was too cruel to utter. It's just..." I stammered. "Just what, Madison? A moment of weakness? Or months that I haven't noticed?" He gritted his teeth, his hands clenching until they turned white. "I don't know." I burst into tears, the feeling of guilt surging like a wave engulfing me. I felt lost, like a ghost in my own life. "And you thought the way to escape that was to find another man?" he yelled, the first time I had seen him so out of control. The room suddenly became suffocating. My son came downstairs, his eyes sleepy but reflecting fear when he saw his parents arguing. Go back to your room, it's nothing, my husband said, his voice softening. But when the upstairs bedroom door closed, he turned back to me. I thought you were the most trustworthy person in my life, he said, his voice hoarse. But you've betrayed everything. I didn't expect my husband to act so quickly. The very next day, while I was at school, Alex called, his voice urgent. Madison, we're in trouble, he said. Your husband knows everything. I felt like the ground beneath my feet was collapsing. He came to my restaurant this morning. He threatened to tell the school board about us. Madison, you don't understand, this will ruin everything. I stood there, phone in hand, my mind reeling. I had pushed things too far, and now everything was coming back to swallow me. That evening, I returned home, facing my husband in a suffocatingly tense atmosphere. I talked to Alex, he said, not looking at me. I won't let him destroy this family, Madison. But you have to choose either him or us. I stood there, feeling guilt, shame, and pain mixed into a chaotic mess in my heart. I don't need to choose, I whispered, tears falling. I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. It's too late, he said, his voice cold. We can try to mend things, but I'll never forget this. I knew I had lost everything. Alex cut off contact, my husband lived with me like a stranger. I became a prisoner in my own life, not daring to ask for forgiveness, but also unable to go back to who I was before. Every morning I woke up, I looked in the mirror, seeing a woman who had lost everything because of a moment of weakness. And I asked myself, can I start over? But the answer never came. This part brings the story to the climax of the conflict, placing the protagonist in a situation where she cannot escape without facing the consequences. If you want to add any other details, I will be happy to develop it further.